So our definition of a mystic is someone who has the direct experience of God. Someone who has a direct experience of God. Now that direct experience shows up in all kinds of ways. Such a variety of ways. Some people have that experience of God when they're walking in the hills around this beautiful valley. And they're touched by the awe and majesty of the mountains and the sunrise and the sunsets and the glory of the world around us. Some people have that when they are in deep contemplation, really going within and asking those deep questions that awaken something within them. For me, I've had most of my mystical experiences through hearing what I would consider to be the voice of God, often accompanied by a 2x4. I'm just saying it happens every way to everybody, so. A friend asked me one time, what did God sound like when I was explaining this story? And I said, well, it sounded like me. What else could it be? She didn't get that, but that's okay. Mystical consciousness is that way of understanding spirit in a way that you know that you know that you know, and you don't really have to justify it to anybody else. It is about a deep inner knowing of what the truth is, how spirit operates in your life, how it operates in the world, and having a personal relationship with it. Now, if you remember last week, Reverend Colleen gave us this wonderful quote, which I've used it before too, from Reverend Michael Beckwith, who says that 100% of spiritual growth is letting go. That sounds easy, doesn't it? Very simple. We don't have to do much. We just have to let go. How many of you find letting go easy? Generally, for me, I let go when I can't do anything else. And I've dropped to my knees, and that's it, and I've let go. That's when I've had mystical experiences, when I couldn't do anything else but go into the silence and say, I'm just going to sit here because I can't do anything. So I'm going to sit here until something is revealed, or I find a solution to it, or I just feel better. And then I hear spirit. It comes through that way. She also talked about the work of Michael Singer. Michael Singer does a lot of his work through yoga. And so there's a Hinduism theme that runs through his stuff. So he uses a lot of Hindu terms from Sanskrit. One of them is samskara. Reverend Colleen introduced us to that term last week. Samskara. This is how Michael Singer defines a samskara. It's an energetic block. Something has happened in our lives, and it gets stuck inside of us. It's something that we haven't worked through yet. It's still active in us, and even though we're trying to push it away and push it down and not deal with it, it's stuck. It stays there. I like the terms in the word samskara is the word scar, and I think of some of the physical scars I have on my body that for years later are an irritant. I have one on my leg that I got when I was 9 years old. I still can't rub my hand over it without getting, that icky feeling. Because it's there, it's stuck inside of me. And of course, every time I rub my hand over it, I feel back to when I was 9 years old and received the scar, the injury that gave me that scar. But that's what these energy blocks are. They're things that get stuck in us, and then they get triggered. When we have other situations that happen that remind us of that, it's tugging at us. I was doing some work with forgiveness work, and somebody described it this way. It's like a hook inside of your skin that every time you move a certain way, it gets pulled. Or like if you imagine having a splinter that you just can't get out, and every time you touch it, or that wonderful sore thumb that we get sometimes. I know in this time of year, the winter, my skin starts to crack around my thumbs. And you get that, and you bump it every single time you go to do anything. And it gets triggered again, that pain, that feeling that you have that goes along with it. That's what samskaras are. They're energy blocks that get triggered within us all the time. Unfinished energy is one of the things that he calls it. Unfinished energy. A scar of stored past experiences. These samskaras are created when we don't allow the emotions of a situation to move through us. Something happens to us, it gets in our body, it gets lodged in there, and we don't let it move all the way through naturally. As we do with a lot of things, we just let them, what is it, there's an adage, something about it flowing off your water, like water off the back of a duck, that kind of thing. If we just let it flow off of us so easily, it doesn't get stuck. It doesn't cause that energy blockage in us. Michael Singer says this. He says, if you hold on to past experiences, you will build your own internal house of horrors and will struggle to be comfortable inside. Who wants that, right? Our own internal house of horrors. When we have these samskaras, when we have these energy blockages stuck in us, when we've had an experience that we have not allowed ourselves to move all the way through. Logically, it doesn't make sense to store these inside of us, but it's what happens in many of our experiences. He goes on to say, this is the root cause of all anxiety, tension, and psychological disturbances. The root cause. The root cause, and it can't be fixed unless you deal with the root of it. Unless you go back to the beginning and figure out what's going on in here that's making me hold on to this, it stays there. And as long as you're holding inside that which bothered you, whether it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 3 days ago, it doesn't matter. As long as we are holding on to it, we're going to suffer about it. Because things will happen to remind us of that. So I want to give you an example. This is a really good example that I personally experienced, so I can talk about it very easily. So I moved here when I was 16 years old. I was in the middle of high school, El Dorado High School, go Sun Devils. And so my senior year of high school, I get my new car. My parents buy me a car, not new, but new to me. So some friends and I were going to go to see a show. We went, first show I ever saw in Las Vegas, Steve Martin, that wild and crazy guy, you remember him? At the Aladdin Theater for the Performing Arts. And so since I had a new car, I was driving. And there were 5 of us going. So we had a wonderful time. And afterwards, one of the girls that was in the car with me wanted to stop and see her boyfriend. So everybody agreed. So we're driving along, and I drive to the house that she tells me, and we get out, and we go in, and we spend a little bit of time there. Now, let me real clear here. Nothing happened. Okay, nothing happened. But I was such an introvert that those of you that know me when I came here, it was a lot worse when I was 17. I was such an introvert, I felt so uncomfortable in this house that I couldn't wait to get out of there. Nothing happened. Nobody said anything. Nothing happened. I just felt uncomfortable. So we leave the place, go. I drop them all off at their homes, no problems whatsoever. Now I'm going to UNLV, and I live on the east side of town, so I drive up Flamingo. Every single time I pass that street, I get that tug. I get that pull inside of me. Now, me and my infinite wisdom, I'm driving, like I said, Flamingo, from east side of town to UNLV. You can imagine, I'm on Flamingo a lot. And every single time I pass that street, I get that tug. So I start doing things like I'm coming down Flamingo, and I get to about Eastern, and I think, oh, that street's up ahead. And I turn and go a different direction, so I don't have to pass that street. Anybody ever done anything like that? No. And then I thought, well, that's just silly. So I'm going to make myself do this. I'm going to get over this. And so I'm driving, and I'm thinking, okay, it's coming up here, Laura. Don't react. Don't react. The street's coming. You know it's coming. Don't react. Well, what's happened the whole time I'm saying that to myself? I'm reacting. I'm having this tug, right? Now, you'd think that would have been over in a year or two. I started at our center when I was 45. I was still feeling that. I could drive on Flamingo Road, and the center was not too far off of Flamingo, so I spent a lot of time on it too. I would drive on that side on the road, and I would see that street, and I'd have that tug. I can now drive by the street and not have any problem whatsoever. So this is the route I was going. I just wanted to pull that up. This is the route I was going there, right? It wasn't until I got to the center and started learning about my relationship with Spirit, what Spirit was, how I could interact with it. I did not do 1 ounce of work about solving this problem. But within a couple of years, I could drive down Flamingo and not have the problem anymore. Because I understood things in a way that I hadn't understood them before. I understood who I was, I understood what God was, and I understood how it worked in the world. And I was able to release that tug that happened there. Now, there is a huge amount of irony in this story. And that happens to be in the name of the street. I think you can see it here. South Grace Street. The name of the street was Grace. Grace was the street that I needed. Grace was what I needed in my life to move through that. And yet Grace Street was the blockage that lasted for over 28 years. We have all kinds of things that have happened to us in our lives, all kinds of situations that we need to let go of. And it sounds so simple, and it can be so difficult unless we actually begin to understand who we are, what the relationship we have to Spirit is, unless we begin to get a glimpse and have that personal experience of God. Sometimes it's difficult to let go of these things. One of our favorite mystics, Joel Goldsmith, says it this way. He says, all discord, all error, all sin is the result of living as if we were something separate from God. For those 28 years, I didn't know God and I were one. I didn't have a relationship with Spirit. I'd gone to churches here and there till they annoyed me, and then I didn't go anymore for whatever reason. But it wasn't until I decided that I wanted to experience life differently. And that was through the work that we do here at our center, through taking the classes, through working with a practitioner, through just actually engaging in spiritual practices, that I began to have a life different, where I no longer had that tug. Now, there are lots of things that I've had tugs on that I've actually applied some of our spiritual principles to work through in a very systematic way, like forgiveness work. I've done a lot of work with forgiveness and allowed myself to no longer have that hook pulling at me because of that situation. But this one was one I just did the work that we do here. I just did this. I didn't focus on it, but it released on its own. When we are living this life and we don't know our connection with Spirit, then life gets all tangled up. It feels like something's missing. It feels sometimes like it's a battle, like I have to work at something, or I have to fix it, or I have to struggle against it. So many things that we fight against in our lives that if we just relaxed into them and allow them to release, we wouldn't have to fix anything. Once we surrender, or as Michael Beckwith said, let it go, once we do that, then things open up for us in a way that they weren't before. Michael Singer, in his book, Living Untethered, says, "You are not your thoughts or emotions. You are the one who notices them. If you let go, the energy of life will pass through you and you will be free." Again, back to that letting go. Sounds simple. Not always. So in this, Singer invites us to stop pushing away our feelings. Stop trying to bury them. Stop trying to do everything imaginable to not feel them, like I did driving all over town. I learned a lot about this area, Flamingo here, by the way. Although it's all changed now. When we let them move through us, that energy of life, all of those things that have happened to us in the past, and we let them move through us, then we begin to experience things differently. Another person I follow a lot is Stephen Levine. He writes a lot about grief. And he has this wonderful meditation called the soft belly meditation. And it's about focusing your attention on your torso, because he says that's where we store all this stuff. That's where all those samskaras are stored, in this main part of our body here. And so in this meditation, it's about relaxing the muscles, relaxing everything, and letting those things bubble up. And just as you envision that they are little bubbles rising up to the surface, and then we just breathe them out. And so it's a way of consciously moving through some of those stuck energy fields that are inside of us. But again, it's about allowing ourselves to know our connection with Spirit, know that Spirit is working through us all the time, always for our good, always for our good. It doesn't ever want anything that isn't for the highest and greatest good of all. And so when we allow that to move through us, it just bubbles on up, and those energy blockages can go away. Joel Goldsmith says, "Be still and let the presence do the work. Your part is to be a transparency for God, not a barrier of thought." Or in this case, a barrier of energy. Allow it to move through us. Allow that to go through us a little easier. Both of these teachers, Michael Singer and Goldsmith, invite us to move from interfering with what's happening to allowing. It's moving against that idea of, I've got to fight it, I got to fix it, I got to solve this, I've got to do it. If it's to be, it's up to me kind of thing. And allowing Spirit to move through us and bubble up and come on out. Allowing those things to just dissolve the best way possible. So how do we do this? How do we actually put this into practice? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to notice what's happening. The moment you tighten, the moment you feel that tug, whether it's a person, a place, an event, a feeling in your body, whatever that is, the moment you feel it, notice it. Become aware of it. We can't fix anything. We can't release anything if we refuse to acknowledge it. If we refuse to allow it to have a place to be, it's going to stay inside of us. So the moment you tighten around it, notice that contraction. Notice that feeling. Next, you relax. Instead of struggling against it, instead of pushing against it, instead of resisting it, tightening up even further about it, relax. I do this most easily by just taking in some nice deep breaths. Feel that feeling? Let it go. Just breathe in. You could say, this too is passing through me. You can say, I am whole. I am complete. Whatever you need to do to allow yourself to relax instead of tighten around it. And then the next step is to allow. Allow Spirit to take care of it. God's got this. I'm good. God's got it. I don't have to deal with it. Allow that to happen. But don't just say it in a way that the back of your mind you're saying, oh yeah, right, I still got to fix this. You know, notice what's happening inside of you in all aspects of you. Allowing is not, it won't work if you have that contradiction going on inside of your mind. So trust that there is something higher, greater, more loving than anything you can possibly think of that's happening inside of you right now. Allow it to happen. God's got you for this. And then the last thing is to let it go. Release it. Go back to that 100% of spiritual growth is about letting go. We don't have to add anything unto ourselves. We are complete and whole and perfect right here and right now. We've just forgotten it. Or we've allowed these things to block it. So let the energy move through you. I mean, you don't have to comment on it. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to even worry about it. Just allow it to move through you. Goldsmith would say, Let the Christ within reveal itself to you as peace. Allow that presence to just move through you. Singer would say, relax and release. Don't close your heart. It's the same thing in different languages, different ways of speaking, different ideas, different years of work that they've done too. It's about letting it move through us instead of being blocked. Michael Singer says, life is simple. The only reason it seems complicated is because the mind is so active about it. I enjoy a simple life. I enjoy a life filled with peace and love because I've learned to relax into spirit. I've learned to let it take control when there's things that are happening that I don't understand, that I can't explain. I relax and release into it. Michael Singer teaches us about what he calls radical acceptance. Radical acceptance. Radically accepting the presence of a power that is greater than you are. And as our founder Ernest says, that you can use and that uses you. Our spiritual journey is not about fixing anything, but it's about freeing it. 100% of spiritual growth is about letting go. Free yourself from those things that have held you back in the past. We don't suffer because of the things. We suffer because we resist the things. As I said in my example, nothing happened. But I resisted my feelings about it. And it lasted for over 28 years. Nothing happened. I resisted the feeling. But when we can relax into it and release it, it doesn't have a place to operate for us in our lives anymore. All of our resistance are these energetic blockages. It's a contraction of our heart and our mind around some pain, some fear, or in my case, some preference. I would have rather it have been different. And so my reaction for 28 years was in response to it not being the way I wanted it. Letting go is not about suppressing it or avoiding it, but it's about the willingness to allow the energy to move through us, to let it flow. The moment that we stop clinging to anything, that energy flows again, and that inner peace finds place for us, within us again. Once we allow that energy to flow. So this letting go is about letting God. It is about giving God a place to operate in our lives. It's about realizing that I don't have to fix everything. When we let go, what fills that space is not emptiness, but the presence. God rushes in. Whenever it finds a void, it rushes in to fill it with its own presence. Goldsmith calls this the activity of the infinite invisible, the divine presence that moves into us when we stop trying to control. Ernest Holmes would call it the action of the Spirit through a receptive consciousness. The action of the Spirit through a receptive consciousness. When we open ourselves to it, it rushes in to fill. So to let go is to make room for God, to make room for the presence to have a place to operate in our lives. It's to move from the personal sense of the self to that impersonal presence of the Christ, or the enlightened consciousness that is within us. The sacred simplicity in all of this is remembering that nothing ever needs to be added to us. Nothing needs to be resisted, and nothing is ever withheld from us. And when we do that, then life becomes peaceful without having to manage it. That we act from spontaneous wisdom instead of fear or anger or preference or any of those other things. And we begin to find the beauty in the ordinary around us. When you stop seeking power and simply rest in God, everything unfolds in perfect order, silently, effortlessly, and harmoniously. This is the sacred simplicity. It's not something we achieve, but it's something that's revealed to us when we stop battling against it, when we stop trying to fix it, or when we stop running away from it. Who doesn't want more of that? We leave you with one final quote from Ernest. The infinite is simple. It creates without effort, loves without condition, and gives without limit. To live in this sacred simplicity is to trust the natural ease of spirit. Stop trying to fix, manipulate, control, or resist. We're the ones who make it hard. God is pretty easy. All right, let's take this into prayer. I invite our practitioners to stand and surround us. And if you want more of what I just described as my life, you might consider taking some of our practitioner classes. I became a practitioner for me, not for anybody else. And it changed my life completely. All right, so let's just take in a breath. Allow our shoulders to drop. Feel the support of the chair beneath us. As we open up to the wisdom of Spirit flowing forth into us. So right here and right now, I know that there is only one power, one presence, one infinite creative love intelligence that has brought forth everything into existence. I know this one is God, but it goes by many names and shows up in infinite numbers of form. I know God in the sunrise and the sunset. I know God when I cuddle my dogs and I speak with a friend. I know God in the quiet and the peace of meditation. For I know that God is everywhere, in all things, and continuously manifesting itself through all of creation. And because I know there's only one, I know that I am one with it, that the power and the presence of that creative love intelligence brought me into existence, enabled me with all of its divine power to be that place where it shows up in this time and space. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for all of us. For we are all that perfect and unique emanation of a love so powerful, so awesome that it could do nothing but create more and more and more of itself. And so knowing this truth, I speak my word. I know that each one of us is that vessel for the divine impress of Spirit to make itself known in our lives and in our world. I know that each one of us here has an awesome task to simply release and let go of all of those things that hold us back from knowing the magnificence of who we are. I know that each one of us present is that place where God shows up. And I know as we relax into that knowledge and allow it to be the truth of our being, we feel it more and more tangibly every single day in every single event. Our job is only to relax, to let go, and to release those things that no longer serve us. How good it is to know this. How good it is to feel it. How good it is to see the fruits of its action in my life and in this world. And so I release this word into the law, into that creative mind that knows no lack or limitation, and is always saying yes and unfolding itself for the greatest good of all. I let it go and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.